So, I know that my next video should probably be about Imkao, due to it doing staggeringly well. But at the time of recording this, our Lord and Savior, Agmashwa, Na himself, has just announced the next Cursed Conlang Circus. So I'ma do a video on this next Conlang for that video. Or this video, whatever. So we've all heard of
Atlantis, an ancient city filled with treasure thought to be lost at sea by Poseidon.
But it has been disputed by historians as just a funny story that wasn't supposed to be taken seriously. But what if that wasn't a funny story? What if Plato was actually onto something? I mean, there are some similarities between Indo-European and Uto-Aztecan languages, and there sure are a lot of pyramids around the world. Wait, are those pyramids? In Antarctic? This is Proto-Antarctic, also called Atlantean, Proto-Atlantean, or not to be confused with algebraic Antarctic, which is a theory regarding the writing system, which we'll cover later. It is what I have come up with for Agmashwa's third ever
Cursed Conlang Circus!
I got my idea from watching a video by Bibliaradian, where he said,
For any a posteriori conlangers listening to this, I've got an idea for you. The modern reimagining of the Atlantis story. Atlantis is an island or a continent in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and the Atlantean culture is not only the progenitor of all of the cultures and peoples of Europe, but also of the Americas as well. What I'd like to see happen is someone take Proto-Afroasiatic and maybe Proto-Indo-European, as well as Proto-Mayan and maybe Proto-Uto-Aztecan, or really whatever other language families you like, and from them reconstruct the original Atlantean language that gave rise to all of them. I think that would be really, really fun, but also really, really challenging to do, which is why I'm not going to do it. But as I say, any conlangers watching this, if you like the idea, go ahead and do something with it.
So, Bibliaridian, if you're watching this, thanks, I'm a big fan. Anyway, it originates in, well, Antarctica, right around here, and is the ancestral language to, oh my god, so many languages. Plato somehow figured this out and was all like, oh yeah, there's gotta be a continent in the middle of the Atlantic. What? Antarctica? No way, it couldn't, there's no way, Wait, when was Antarctica discovered? Oh, never mind, he couldn't have known about Antarctica anyway. But everything else happened, and he was mostly right. Except the continent wasn't Atlantis, but it was Antarctica. So everyone clap for Plato. Okay, now clap for me. Yeah! Also, you know how the Sami language has influence from some mystery language that somehow went undetected by science? Yeah, well, that was one of Proto-Antarctic's more direct descendants, which is also extinct. Arctic Antarctic. Oh, that sounds so ridiculous. Oh, but Longan, you're saying? Humans migrated to Eurasia from Africa, you silly little non-binary individual. Well, to that I say, you're wrong! No, I'm just kidding, you're right. Early Homo sapiens did originate from Africa, but it's a common misconception that they only moved to Eurasia during the Ice Age, and then spread to the rest of the world that way. This is only partially correct, and how we get Uralic, Turkic, Sino-Tibetan, Dene-Yeniseian, Eskimo-Aleut, Kipyip, Basque, and many more language families. But they also moved south to Antarctica, which thereafter they simultaneously migrated to all the other continents via natural convection currents. This caused the ancestral Antarctic languages, yes plural, I'll get to that in a sec, to even further split into Proto-Indo-European, Bantu, Algic, Uto-Aztecan, Pama-Nyungan, Afro-Asiatic, and all these language families. Anyway, that's enough oversimplified history. Now about the language itself, starting with the... Most linguists, just me, believe Proto-Antarctic had two separate dialects, or languages depending on who you ask. Eastern or Western. For these purposes, I'm going to call them dialects, because if I treat them like separate languages and I have to explain Proto-Antarctic encompassing two separate languages and the mixing and creolizing of these two languages leading to the world's major language families, I would literally explode. Plus, they're semi-mutually intelligible, kind of like how Scots and English is, I guess. These two dialects were spoken on this side of the continent and this side of the continent respectively. These major language families were descended from the Eastern dialect, and these ones were descended from the Western dialect. But there was also mixing of different dialects involved too, so you know. The consonants are both generally considered to be b, b, da, da, bra, k, g, g, qa, cra,
Ga.
d, r, f, v, sh, s, sh, h, h, s, m, n, r, ny, ng, w, l, y, r, r, with the addition of v in the Eastern dialect. The only vowel that seems to be present in Proto-Antarctic, though, for both dialects is This is due to the language historically being spoken over very long distances. Due to the loudness of the single vowel, I will only use this meme sound effect as not to disturb the people I live with. The phonotactics are this. Pause the video and read it if you want. I'm not saying all that. I already came up with them and had to type it out. I'm not saying it too. Anyway, now about the syntax, which there is. Oh my god, so much. Let's start with the Western dialect. The basic word order is we ain't getting off that easy. Proto-Antarctic, at least the Western dialect, can have any word order depending on the context. To determine each one, we'll have to go through a few steps. In step 1, a speaker determines whether the subject, the verb, or the object comes first in the sentence. To do this, the speaker would have to consider two things. We'll call this thing 1 and thing 2 for the funny. For thing 1, the speaker will have to determine whether the sentence is formal or informal. The sentence is formal if speaking to an older relative or an alien. I'll get to that in a sec, I promise. Now, for thing 2, we have to determine if the sentence is declarative, interrogative, or imperative. That's it. Once these two things are determined, they mix and match in accordance to this lovely chart I made. There's gonna be a lot of charts in this video. For step 2, a speaker determines whether the word order for that sentence is gonna be head initial or head final. The way they do that is by determining if it talks about any of these things, as well as what part of speech is being said first. So, for example, if the sentence is talking about any of these things, and, say, the subject is going first in the sentence, then the rest of the word order is head initial. So the word order would be SVO. Now that we have our word order situated, we can talk about adjectives, adverbs, and adpositions. Depending on the word order, adjectives, adverbs, and adpositions are placed either before or after the word they modify. The way this is determined for any given part of speech is whether the other two are present in a sort of rock, paper, scissors based system as shown here. As an example, let's translate the sentence. If I had a nickel for every time I was stupid, I would not have to be very smart to make a lot of money. Whoa, there's a conditional phrase. Let's get to that after we focus on this part. I would not have to be smart to make a lot of money. Let's pretend that this is being said to a large group of people for simplicity. That would mean the sentence is probably informal, therefore the first part of speech being said is the verb. Now, is the topic of the sentence about any of these things? Well, it can be considered to be philosophical, so let's say yes. This makes it head initial, so the word order would be VOS, I think. Now for the rock, paper, scissors part of speech, which I'll be calling the RPS parts of speech for short. We'll color them pink for adverbs, green for adpositions, and blue for adjectives. Oh wonderful, it looks like all three parts of speech are here. That would make the adjective go here, the adposition go here, and the adverb go here. Technically would is an auxiliary verb, but Proto-Antarctic doesn't distinguish the two, so shush. Now for the conditional phrase, you go through the same process. But where do you put it in relation to everything else? Well, It can either be put at the end of a sentence, at the beginning, or right before the head, as shown here. Since the sentence has 3 RPS words and is intransitive, I think the conditional phrase will go here. Then we just translate the words, word for word, since Proto-Antarctic doesn't have any cases. Those will come later, and bada bing bada boom, we've got a full Western Proto-Antarctic sentence. Now let's talk about Eastern Proto-Antarctic syntax. There is no set word order. Like, there is none. For example, the sentence, the goat ate the sandwich and the sandwich ate the goat mean the exact same thing. Any part of speech can go anywhere, literally anywhere. The way you can tell who is doing what is by context and context alone. This goes for literally every part of speech in Eastern Proto-Antarctic. If you want, there are hundreds of helper words that can be put in a sentence. These helper words aren't super structured in nature, by that I mean the helper words can be used to describe a lot of weird things, such as this helper word that can be used for the word. The fact that the East has literally 0 syntax gives us some interesting insights on how human language evolved. If this reconstruction is correct, and as
the seer of all of this world-building project,
it reveals that humans only picked up human-like syntax very much later in their evolution. Whether this means that humans nowadays have an innate capacity for syntax or not is a story for later. Whether this means universal grammar is wrong or even falsifiable is also a story for later. In terms of language typology, I'm not entirely sure how to classify them. I mean, I guess they're both isolating since they don't have cases or agglutination or fusion or anything. But Eastern Proto-Antarctic doesn't rely on word order at all, just helper words. Okay, you know what? I invented pansynthesis. These two have new language typologies, pan-analytic for the West and anti-analytic for the East. As you could tell, Western Proto-Antarctic derives the vast majority of its meaning from specific parts of speech and word order, very common in analytic and isolating languages, while Eastern Proto-Antarctic uses helper words and only helper words to derive meaning, also common for analytic and isolating languages. Both these systems eventually mellowed out, beginning to use more recognizably human structure for languages and leaving very variable syntaxes and grammars in their descendant languages. But that begs the question, why were the two so different? Aliens. What? Aliens! You heard me. It was freaking aliens. Yeah, I told you we'd get to it. The Western Proto-Antarctic people were in contact with aliens. That's how they built the pyramid! These are I'm not pronouncing that. I'll just call them the crab people. They come from a watery super Earth called Conifer 261b. That's not an actual planet. With around 3 times the gravity of Earth, similar atmospheric composition, and a surface that is like 92% water, most of which being ice. The crab people's homes were traditionally built in the shape of cones to imitate local flora, which evolved to be chill on ice. Funny pun. The Proto-Antarctic people came to Antarctica after the crab people showed up, settled down, and built the massive pyramids that are definitely not mountains. Don't come at me, Minute Man. Since the Proto-Antarctic language was in its baby stage at the time, it gave time for the crab people to have influence on the Western Proto-Antarctic people, but not the Eastern Proto-Antarctic people, because they don't come into contact as much. Make sense? Yeah, I'm not explaining it great. TLDR, crabs colonized the west side of Antarctica, people showed up, Westerners get influenced by technologically advanced crabs, Easterners do not. Some of the stuff that seeped into the language are the syntax, the phonology, and the... Okay, get ready for a doozy. Now, nobody knows exactly how the writing system for Proto-Antarctic works, since it was probably borrowed from the crab people. All we know is that only the Western Proto-Antarctic people used it, and all of its descendant languages stopped using it by the time they made it to other continents. Although we don't know exactly how it works, an entertaining and also most well-established guess comes from Dr. Mary Juana of Syracuse University. Her guess is that the writing system is a syllabary of some sorts, and each of the syllables have a sort of algebraic meaning, hence the name Algebraic Antarctic. So each symbol is an algebra problem, and the solution is what the syllable says. How that works, I don't frickin' know. I'm no mathematician or linguist. For the purposes of this video, and to get the most up-to-date research on this, I asked Dr. Juana herself for some more insights.
Yeah, so I actually came up with a bit of a more viable idea since I published that paper. So my new idea is that each syllable is written as a math problem. And not only is each math problem a syllable, each term in the problem tells us what phonemes to put in a syllable, and the type of math problem corresponds to a type of syllable. For example, a two-step inequality would be a syllable that's closed on both sides, and the amount of terms is how many phonemes there are on the onset and coda. The answer tells us whether the syllable is phonotactically sound, and the stuff in the actual problem tells us the other parts of the syllable somehow, like the stuff outside the nucleus or even the length of the syllable.
That's so cool. Would that mean that the phonemes in Proto-Antarctic act sort of as numbers of some sort?
So there's no way of knowing for sure, but if my theory is correct, then most likely, yeah. And that would open up the possibility of a sort of phonetic system where, like, for example, one consonant plus another consonant would equal to a different consonant. Like, for example, T plus K would be a retroflex stop. And this would be totally unlike anything we've seen before, even in like other proto-languages. So it's interesting how all these features were just lost along every single lineage.
Well, awesome. Thank you for agreeing to be in this video and sharing your knowledge with my audience.
Yeah, absolutely. Wait, what video?
So, as you can see, very complex stuff. For the purposes of this video, I'll be using the romanization made by Dr. Juana, which I totally got permission to use before she published it. Now that we got pretty much everything I need to get out of the way, let's translate a required sentence so I don't get disqualified. And I will do it in both dialects, because I'm quirky like that.
Edward. Edward. Also, one more thing before I go. Something I'd like to add is that I noticed that in my Inqao video, I got a lot of complaints about the audio only being on the left side, including a complaint from Mr. Schwa himself. Now, when I was watching the announcement for the first time,
Quality. 2. The narration audio has to at least be acceptable. Right? If we're being bombarded by static, or if the sound is only in one ear for some reason.
do you see what I see? I pissed off the Supreme Leader Nga so much with my atrocious audio that he had to add a rule that specifically says, hey, you can't do that. This is the biggest achievement I've ever achieved. Alright, bye.